What a Tuesday. Hello, everyone.
Here we
Yeah,
are.
Dean Spade, fresh from the phlebotomist.
absolutely. Tess is here from the dentist. Dean is here from the blood doctor. I woke up,
God, I need a
so
procedure today.
I
Shit. Okay, I got to
know
figure this out.
Procedure?
I could get a procedure done. I
Think
don't
about
know.
it. I'll extract something.
I have a doctor's appointment today, but can I tell you, my doctor called this morning and was like, "Hey, actually, can we just do it over the phone?" And I don't like
Whoa.
that.
Are
Yeah, I
you
want to,
anti?
huh?
Are you anti?
Yeah, I want to go in person. I'm
Oh,
like,
I love phone.
I'm 40, so I'm like, this is like this is my 40th
Has
doctor
it?
visit.
Okay, it's like been a long time. It's not like a
Yeah.
follow up. Okay.
Wait, is this
Grab,
physical?
yeah.
Oh, well, then you've got to go to the phlebotomist. This is probably just your prelim.
No, I know. I just like am not
It is funny for a doctor to be like, "Can we text instead?"
yeah, no, I'm not getting fuckboyed by my doctor. I'm not a fan.
I'm the opposite. Like, I just started this new doctor service where they FaceTime you, and I'm loving it. I'm like, yeah, let me just pull over at a gas station and have a doctor's appointment real quick.
It's ideal.
Oh my gosh, Dean, where's the weirdest place you had a doctor's appointment?
Ooh, that is a great question because I really have tried a lot of weird medical treatments. Oh, the dog. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's okay. We love a dog.
Well, yeah, there must be someone on the
We've
porch.
had many a dog guest on the podcast unknowingly. They do have to sign a release, so I hope you have their paw print ready
Yeah, yeah.
Just
in
let's see if
preview.
opening the door lets him relax.
Yeah, no
Hey,
worries.
they gotta, there's a lot going on. It's like
I
there's
know.
someone on that porch. They need to let you know. All right. That's
Yeah.
not going unnoticed.
I'm
So many
sure
people live in my house. They're all coming and going. The
Well,
dogs have to bark.
I'm sure also like the dogs are like, excuse me, like you are on the book tour currently right now. I mean, I guess we're doing a call in. You're like my doctor currently.
It's true.
For your new book, Love in a Fucked Up World: How to Build Relationships, Hook Up, and Raise Hell Together. Delightful. Also, can I just say perfect size for traveling? This is a good travel
Thank you.
book.
I love
Oh,
how it feels like it's a little square or something. It feels to
Yeah,
me like I really wanted it to
little.
feel like you could flip through it. It could be like a Cosmo quiz, kind of like you could skim it. You could send
Hmm.
your friend a text of like a list or a chart. And I feel like somehow they did make it feel a little bit like that.
Yeah. No, it's got a good like it doesn't it moves good. It's in a good place. I just went to New York for 23 hours and was reading this when I wasn't sleeping on an airplane. So
That's a very short trip. I worry about you.
it was all right. I just had
Brandy's
it
got a
so
vagabond like that.
yeah.
She was like, I was like, where are you staying? And she was like, nowhere. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
That
I
You
did
like
is
stay in the club all
so
night and then like
yeah.
crazy. Like, wow.
Yeah,
That
I had to go for a comedy show. I like a chic like in and out with a backpack half full, just like this is all I need. I can do what gotta do, get in and out. I'm gone. It was great. Going to the airport at like 5:30 in the morning, I was just like, and we did it. And
I'm
we nailed it.
free.
It was great.
you beat the system.
Oh my gosh. I went to New York recently and that I had discovered this like Uber does, I don't know, shuttles, so you don't have to pay for like your own, which was really nice. So it was like a lot cheaper. And so I was in the shuttle with some random dude. And he, I don't know, he was like, "Where, why are you here?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm here for a comedy festival." And he goes like, "Okay, tell me a joke." Of course, classic. And I'm
The
like, "Oh no."
worst happens all the time.
Yeah. And so I was like, "All right." So I did my fog machine joke, whatever. And he was, and to silence, obviously, I don't know what I'm expecting.
Right.
But then he just takes a second. He goes, "Oh, I'm slow. I don't really get comedy." And I was like, "Why the fuck did you ask me to tell you a joke?" He was like,
Oh
"I don't
man.
really go to comedy shows because I don't get them." And I'm like, "Cool. Thanks for the request."
That's so funny. Like, okay, you could have just not asked for anything, sir.
Yeah, like I don't know what you expected this exchange was going to turn into.
Yeah, shit
Well,
happens.
And then, yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter.
speaking of interpersonal relationships with various people you may encounter, tell us about the impetus and the inspiration behind what got you interested in writing about your book is about nurturing relationships and political movements. Tell us about what got you interested in sort of the intersection of those things.
yeah, I mean, having to live a life and have relationships, this book really just came from my own. I've been writing this book for about 10 years, but it came from since my late teens, early 20s. Honestly, I started reading self-help books when I was a kid, but since my late teens, early 20s, just like, living my own life and having to manage my own relationships and seeing how me and my friends all act really bananas when it comes to sex and love, and then being in political movements from my early 20s and just seeing how like groups get wrecked, like people are like really struggle to like be kind to their friends, to be kind to people that they don't like that much. The people blow up in like really hard conflicts in groups that make the work not happen. Like most of us have a lot of very like beautiful ideas of how we want the world to be, but then like struggle to not just act out the same toxic nonsense that is in every Hollywood movie and song and video game or whatever. So I saw that a lot. And then I also saw that like the kind of tools that are out there for it, like most of the self-help books and programs are really individualizing, really depoliticizing, like as if you could talk about like our sex and love relationships without talking about capitalism and feminism and racism, like all the things. And so I wanted to take some of the good stuff that I had found useful and put it in a context that I thought people in our with our values could actually want to read. I couldn't hand a lot of people the books I'd been reading that just felt like they were like ableist and like sexist and really participated in the idea that the romantic relationship is the most important relationship. Like, could you work on it without having to believe in that? Like, so that is what led to it. And I just worked on it for a really long time because I was like, this is embarrassing to write a self-help book. Who am I to write a self-help book? I'm just somebody with a bunch of messed up relationships like everybody else. And yet I kept returning to it and feeling like there was a need for it. And the few times I like wrote an essay that had some of those themes and people just like really wanted that stuff. I saw that there was a lot of pain and need. And I spent so much of my time supporting individual organizers and groups when there is like a lot of conflict happening in the work that I just was getting a lot of sense of like kind of what some of the like repeated patterns are that then we think it's just happening to us. We blame ourselves. And I was like, if people could really see that these things are like patterns, they don't belong to us, we can kind of try to like forgive ourselves for experiencing them and like be gentle about that and also be like, hey, I don't really want this in the same way that we might fight like consumerism that we've imbibed from the world or pat phobia or many kinds of psychic patterns. And so I'm hoping that it's just kind of like a usable tool in the immediate for people who are just trying to do the work and relate and survive and like feeling that dissatisfaction that so many people feel in relationships.
No, definitely. I feel like so many of those kind of books do exist in such a vacuum, and like, modern therapy exists in a vacuum in a lot of ways where I don't know how many pe friends that like go to a therapy session or whatever, and they just go, well, relationships, fine, but the world is the extra layer on top of it that the lens through which you see everything. And I think your book does a really great job of kind of like taking a little bit of that burden away of like, oh, this isn't just my personal ingrained, like I am not fully responsible. We all have some responsibility for ourselves. I'm not fully responsible for the way that I have seeing things. And I think that's a great place to start by giving yourself grace first, because then once you've given yourself grace, you can extend it to others in your life.
Yeah, ideally, because we really are so judgmental of other people when they're having a hard time. And we're all having such a hard time right now. And like, could
Yeah.
we be a little like more forgiving of that friend who doesn't text back or that person who seems strangely grumpy at the meeting or like
Hmm.
people are not well for good reason. And so, and we're going to all need like a lot of support. And so,
Hmm.
can we be as generous as possible? Can we have like a lot of robust relationships instead of just one, for which a lot of people just have like the one or two or sometimes none? How can we like build communities where people have deep benches of support because a lot of people aren't going to be available? And then how can we all be like maximally forgiving and understanding about how off everyone is right now because of what's going on?
Yeah, I
Hmm.
mean, I think that's going to be so important as we move forward. I mean, because there's so much uncertainty right now for everyone. That really is such a universal experience that I think truly kind of everyone in the whole world is feeling right now is this kind of like nervous uncertainty. And it's going to be a long haul thing. And it is going to require, I think, that kind of checking in with each other and like taking care of each other. And actually, that's like the one thing that we do know is we're going to need that, right? Like,
And the grief. There's so much. I think we live in like an anti-grief society. Like capitalism is like, don't feel this colonial. Like if you're really going to live in colonialism, you're supposed to not notice like the agony that colonialism produces, right?
Yeah.
All of it. We're supposed to, not notice all like the people living unhoused on the street when we're on our way to work or the way we're treated when we're at our job or by our family or whatever. Like, and so to actually live with all the unfelt grief super hard on our systems. And then also like, we're watching genocide. We are like experiencing like truly terrifying conditions, ecocide, like that are, not, it's not getting better, right? And so I think most people are kind of had some combination of frozen or really fearful, anxious, missing sleep, depressed, feel disempowered. Like, what could I ever do about these huge changes? These are all reasonable sensations. And I think there are ways we can all plug in. But like, I think like if we don't give any space to feel how rough it is and just the personal losses, like we live in a society where you don't get any time off when your like parent or spouse or child dies. Like it's just like it's not, it's a brutal system in which to try to like have emotional awareness and like care for others and be right on with each other.
Absolutely. It was so interesting that there's one part in the book where you talk about how the definition of depression, like with grief, has changed in the DSM-5 over time, where it used to be like, all right, grief is its own separate thing. You can be grieving for 3 months. And then now it's 2 weeks is the allotted amount of official grief time, which
Really?
is crazy.
That is
Yeah.
crazy.
If you grieve a major loss longer than 2 weeks, according to this psychiatric manual, you are disordered. Like
What?
if you,
Okay.
yeah, two
Yeah.
weeks and then it turns
Yeah.
into depression. That
Wow.
is
And it's like
so
2 weeks
common.
is like for, I mean, everyone's different, but for a lot of people, that's when the shock wears off. And that's when you enter grief. It's
Right.
like,
And that is so ignorant to what a unique experience like each type of grief can be.
hmm
And that's totally in fucking insane.
It's how disposable we're supposed to be and find each other. You know what I
mhm,
mean? Like
hmm
mhm.
it's supposed to be like, well, my blah 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 died, onward, replace, or whatever, because that's how we're seen, I think, as workers and as people in this society. And so it's just this kind of like you're like if we were allowed to feel the agony of like the extinctions that are happening, of like
Right.
the just the people who've been hurt on the job, the fact people we know are living in cages, working in warehouses, like this is we wouldn't put up with it. So
It's,
there's a lot that's been put in
yeah,
place to like shut it down.
hmm
it's
Also,
interesting.
yeah.
Oh, just whatever. This is a side note, and I'm not going to spoil much, but it's kind of like on Severance. They're basically, they're severancing workers to like make them, and also to try and take away people's emotions and severance grief and things like that
Mhm.
to make them workers and make them like mindless and drones. And so, yeah, I think that is like the ultimate, the goal.
That's their dream. Also, here's the thing. I'd like more Victorian grieving widows just in society. Like, I think it would be better just to see a lot of shrouded people.
I
Because
know.
that's the
I need
thing.
some like umbrella, some like lace umbrellas more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
parasols.
Yeah, veils. I mean, I think this is why a lot of people are creating grief groups
hmm
about
Yeah.
about climate and ecocide, about, I just think most of us don't have anywhere to do this. And it's actually like the idea that you do it all alone it's also just like not, we're animals, we
Yeah.
Yeah.
need to encounter others. Like I've often had the experience of feeling frozen by a grief and then seeing someone else cry and being like, oh, I can feel it releasing. Or I think
hmm
like we need to create spaces of like mourning ritual about how much is being lost and is going to be lost and has been
Well,
lost.
and I think that the reality is also in this particular moment, we're really having to confront. I mean, I think not that, which is not to be totally defeatist, and I'm so passionate about the environment and of course, but like the reality is like we are in the middle of losing some really important opportunities and some really timely opportunities. And like I think for people who are like dialed into climate and dialed into what's actually going on, this is a this no, and again, I don't want to say that we shouldn't still be pushing because we should, but I think we're having to acknowledge that like a certain amount of our pushing really is for naught because they're just not gonna fucking do anything. And like that is such a hard reality to actually accept.
Yeah.
Hmm.
The
hmm
way that I think about that for myself is that we've been living in a society that's told us we should beg and convince elites to do something about stuff. And more people are seeing that's not how it works. The elites who run the system, the way the system's working is perfect, exactly how they want it. They want to concentrate wealth maximally. They're fine with ecocide. So that means it actually is up to us. So there's some grief of letting go of the idea that anyone's going to rescue us. And then we have to do that grieving if we're going to like orient towards action, because if we stay stuck in thinking someone's going to save us, then we don't do what we need to do, which is take care of each other and actually attack their infrastructure. I mean, actually, the people all over the world have been blocking pipelines and other extraction projects, that kind of direct action. Because I think you're right. And there's a certain degree in which the climate change and ecological crisis it's already going to change all life as we know it. And we can already see signs of that all over the world. And many people are already acutely affected. And there's certain ways in which it's already in process. And there's parts of that process that we can't stop that I think are going to drastically change how we all live and already are. And like every single part of it that they're still doing because they're still adding more pollution every single day and still extracting more. We need to stop. And it's that moment. I think grief can be very radicalizing because it's like, oh, I'm letting go of the liberal fantasy that if we beg elites or if we just vote for the right person in, somehow this horrible colonial machine we live under, I'm talking about the United States, will become something that it's never been, which is something that cares for people on the earth. No, its job is to concentrate wealth and exploit, and that it's doing that great. And it's up to us to stop it. And that's like there's a whole emotional process there that I think most people are asked to just get stuck and then like check out with entertainment. Like that's kind of where they want us, just consume and
Yes.
like try not to feel and be overwhelmed and down, but not down in a truly feeling way, like in a grieving way, but instead down in a stuck way, you know?
Yeah, what do you
I
say?
definitely identify with that because like I feel like I go through that a lot where I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna do something I have to do, but because I'm a extremely empathic person, it drains my entire being, you know? So I've dealt with this a lot with other things in my life too, like with family stuff where I'm either all in or all out because it's consumes me if I am in, you know? And so it is a struggle, I think, and I fall into that sometimes where I'm like, I just have to numb out because I like can't handle it, you know, or else it's gonna take my life over. But again, I don't know. It's
I
hard
have
to
a
have my
question
in
about
between.
that.
Yeah.
Have you ever, because I feel like that being stuck in those extremes is a lot what this book is about. I'm curious if you found ways to be like, I can be in but still feel myself or hold myself. Like I can attend to the family care need but still feel myself, or like how's it been trying to have a boundary, but that doesn't mean my only option is to go away, you know?
I've been trying. It's just it's like it's hard. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
I don't know. It's tough.
Have you learned anything that might be useful to others is kind of what I'm curious about.
I think it is just about building. It's about boundaries, really about figuring those out. That's been the most important thing, right? And just like I can do this much and then I also have to take care of myself and I'm still but again, I still don't feel like I'm doing as much as I would like to be as far as, you know, helping because I get to it's because it can be difficult to extract myself. So,
I think
I
sometimes the
don't know.
shame around that or self-judgment also can be a stopper. You know,
Totally.
most
Yeah.
people I know are like in a spiral of shame about there's something else I am supposed to be doing for either individual people I love or the world, and that it actually doesn't help do it. You know, shame is really not a
Right.
good motivator. You know, like inspiration is the best motivator, not shame, right? But we
Mhm.
shame ourselves relentlessly in this society.
Well, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, and I think that it's just like we're never gonna get to like read every good book or listen to every good album. Like there are legitimately things that we're not gonna be able to hold appropriate space for or like give the appropriate amount of action for. And like that's another thing to kind of like grieve and sit with and like and just accept. It's, I think that that's in a weird way part of what we're being sold in this like capitalist idea is that like, oh, there is infinity money and infinity youth and infinity time and like you just need to go to Target and get it, and like that's not fucking true. I mean, none of
Mhm.
us are superheroes. Like they are throwing so much shit intentionally trying to
Mhm.
exhaust us. It's part of their fucking plan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I yeah,
It's
and something I really appreciate about this too is I think like when you talk about organizing in groups, I think like because everybody is so passionate, like you said, some and people have interpersonal, things that come up, but also sometimes I feel like it's so hard to get anywhere because everybody's like conflicted about how exactly they want something to happen. And it
yeah,
is so important to take a step back and realize that it's like patterns, but also that it is okay to be upset and it is okay to be mad about something not going exactly the way you want it or whatever it is, but to accept that. I mean, I really liked you talking about similarly kind of like being in multiple relationships, polyamorous, and it's like being jealous is hurt. I don't want to be jealous, but it's like it's okay to be hurt sometimes. It's okay to feel bad. And I think that's such an important lesson. It's like that it is okay that like you're going to be upset sometimes, but you're going to learn how to get through it, and it's not the avoidance that's helping you.
Yeah, what you were just saying too about like not needing to get our exact way, but also being able, like this balance, I think most of us struggle with. Like either it's like my way or the highway, or I'm a
Yeah.
complete shrinking violet and not going to tell you anything I really think. And
Mhm.
how to be like, oh, where do I tend? And how do I play with the edge a little bit? Because if I never give feedback in this friendship or in this dating relationship or whatever, can I be willing to like take up a little more space and give a little more feedback? Or if I'm like so inflexible that I'm just like or in this organizing group. I mean, I think that happens a lot. People are like, I'm brave and I'm here, and now I need everything to go exactly my way because I'm kind of anxious about whether I'm an imposter or
Yeah.
I'm kind of anxious about how it's going to go. And then I'm really what we need is people to be able to join groups, including groups like families, but also groups like, doing work in the community or whatever, and be like, okay, that's not my ideal, but that's going to help the group move forward. I've given my feedback. I can live with it. What can I live with? But I'm not going to withhold feedback. I'm not going to like miss the
Mhm.
chance.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm holding useful information over here, I'm like, Tuesdays is really not going to work for folks in that part of the community or whatever. I should say it. And I think most of us some of us will do one thing at work and another thing in our dating relationship or one thing, and just like even being curious about our tendencies and then accepting like, oh, that's what it's been like. And what would it be a little more accurate or my relationships be a little more authentic if I tried flexibility a little bit more here or tried asserting myself a little bit more here. And I think like sometimes it's helpful to get friends to tell us. Like we may think that we're shrinking violet and they're like, oh no, you actually are really pushing, or whatever. Like we don't always know for
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
ourselves what our tendencies are, but being willing to hear that from others and asking that sincerely and then trying the edge.
Absolutely. I think it can be so hard. Like Americans especially, like the ego is such a hard, immovable thing that gets its feelings hurt so easily and makes everything about them so quickly. And you're like, no, 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 it's not. That's not about you right now. Actually, put that aside. Like it's about so much more than that. And it's
Yeah,
such a hard
insecurity.
thing to, yeah, it's such a hard thing to divorce yourself from in a lot of cases.
Yeah,
And
just
also,
knowing we're having the insecurity, just being able
Yeah,
to be
right.
like,
yeah.
I feel this right now, which doesn't mean you've done something to me, Brandy. Like I think a lot of
Yeah,
times,
yeah.
especially in dating relationships, people are like, I feel jealous, you've done something to me, or I feel I'm like just like, does Brandy like me? And then
Yeah.
because of that, I'm like, you're not giving me enough, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Instead, just be like, oh, I'm a little bit, I'd like to ask for a little reassurance. And you can be like, I'm not available right now, Dean. Or, yeah, totally, Dean. I'm ready to tell you I like you. Like, just
Mhm.
taking responsibility for our insecurity as ours and not blaming others would reduce so much of the kind of like, the type of ugly conflict that we have so much of.
Mm.
No, absolutely. I think you make a lot of good. So the romance myth is like a big part of the first early chapters of this book is kind of just like making that as like you talk a lot about breaking down hierarchical structures within our life. I'm really proud of myself for getting that word right.
Beautiful.
Halfway through, I was like, "You're doing it." But like like the romantic relationship above all, and then the different kinds of romantic relationships are all like hierarchies within themselves, like in the way that society is set up currently. And I really appreciated just kind of like it's so important because we also I think have a tendency when seeking that romantic relationship to be at our worst often as well, because it is such a scarcity mindset about getting that thing that is supposed to fulfill everything.
Yeah, and thinking that you're flawed or undesirable or bad if you don't have it. And also, I
Mhm.
mean, just to be totally frank, you know, the person most likely to hurt or kill you is somebody you have that kind of connection with. So it's like the level of
Yeah.
acting our worst is really the worst societally. I mean, I had this friend who goes into women's prisons a lot and does these poetry workshops, and just said to me the other day, like, everyone in prison is in prison for love. Like, and I just like, it's so profound. Like, it's
Oh,
true. Most people I
Wow.
mm.
know who are in prison, something that was really hard that happened, something where they were put into a horrible situation by someone who was a lover, or anyway, just
Hmm.
it's so difficult. But I think this thing, like the thing about the romance myth is like not only does it make us have a distorted view about what's important in our lives, we ditch our friends for our lovers, we like get, we change people change their values because they meet someone, all of this stuff, people like, it's like when your friend, you're like that person, that's why you're leaving us all and like whatever. And then the other thing people do is like expect their lover to read their mind, think that like every single thing they expect in the relationship is normal and the other person's like denying it to them. Like there's this whole, the romance myth tells a whole story about what the relationship should be like that leads to like, I think most relationships are just like cauldrons of resentment if they last. That is
Mhm.
what like the US marriage model is like
Cauldrons of Resentment. That's a
Oh my
great
I just
punk
made
God.
that up.
punk
It's
band
just, you
name.
know,
A
people are just
scathing
so
review.
resentful.
Yeah.
And there's no
Yeah.
generosity and there's no, you know, and so people
Yeah.
go, and I just am like, that's even people who aren't physically hurting each other are so often in like a weird, numb, just
Mhm.
unpleasant dynamic that we you know, sexless that we've all seen.
Mhm.
All you need to do is go to Reddit/relationship advice to see the people, the stuff
I'd be
people write in there.
asshole.
I'm like, what is
Oh God,
happening?
I
Like,
know.
it's
I
it's
know. It's
wild. The red
shocking.
flags. I think
And
also,
meanwhile,
yeah,
that person's partner is elsewhere on Reddit writing horrifying things they don't even know about.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
But yeah, I think it's so important because it's like, I just think, of myself and friends have who, haven't had relationships, and I think of the messaging to them where it's like, all right, well, this is it. This is how you become complete.
Yeah.
And it's just so false. It's so unfair to think, okay, well, if that never happens, then
And that's
you
why our
missed
friendships are
out.
better because I
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't
there
think you have to make me happy, right? I'm not walking into this relationship with like
Yes.
this outrageous expectation and anything that goes funny at all, or if you didn't like my whatever, you know, and I'm not like putting on a weird show for you that I'm not able to maintain. You know, like I think friendship is a good place to look for how we might want to act. I mean, some people are horrible to their friends, it's true, but like in general, it's a less controlled part of our society, and
Mhm.
people often have had experience there of like giving genuine feedback, wanting the best for the other person, like not feeling jealous when something good happens for the other person in the way they do with love, or you know, just like being a little more like truly caring and flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the very least, that like it's important to think about there are so many significant kinds of relationships in one's life, and like there's no like they all serve such a unique purpose. In the same way that like there's so many different kinds of grief, I think there are so many different kinds of partnership and so many different kinds of community.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and the dynamics in a group can change if it's like a group of three and then you add another person, that's a totally different personality once it becomes a 4-person group or a 5-person group. And like each
Mhm.
thing is kind of its own vibe. And yeah, it's kind of nonsensical to expect one type of relationship when that's not how anyone's life. Oh, I think a
Right.
lot of people's lives play out. I think
Unfortunately,
No.
to their detriment. And also, like, what if we
yeah,
could just be like, oh, I can get lots of different needs met different ways. So, like, oh, I really want to have sex with this person, but they're not the person who I want to intellectually really connect with. So I've got these other friends I do that with, or I really want to like, if we are more willing to be like, what's on offer right now? Oh, there is a way for me to have this cute experience. I want to have a best friend I have sleepovers with, and I want to have dates I don't have sleepovers with, or I want to, you know, like all the ways you could mix it up and take what's there instead of being like, I found someone who's cute and I'm going to make them marry me, like, you know, or whatever, or like that kind
Yeah.
of, or, and I'm not going to share this other thing with my friends because it has to come from my lover. Like, there's just this kind of way that we miss out on all the like possible forms of abundant care because we're like stuck in this narrow model.
Well, and I think too of like, just like my mom, it's like, that her and my dad have been together forever, and it's like she doesn't really have that many friends, and it makes me so sad, because
Mhm.
Yeah.
and it's not like their relationship seems good and everything, but it is just like so singular,
yeah.
and
I mean,
it
I
just,
don't
yeah.
agree that monogamy has to be a narrow model. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
monogamous and I don't at all think that that means that they're mutually exclusive, but I think that it's also important, I think, to have a healthy monogamous relationship. You also really need to
Of course.
prioritize your friendships and the
Oh
yes.
other
yeah.
kind of ways that like love presents itself in your
Yeah,
life.
non-exclusivity, I think, is the key. Like having a lot of intellectual, a lot of political, a lot of creative context, like a lot of people who would visit you if you're in the hospital, a lot of people who would come get you out of jail. Like,
Right.
and I think what you're seeing, Babs, with like your mom, you see so many elders who are very isolated because then if they're caring for their partner or that person passes, like I see a lot of people I know who are adult children caring for an elder whose so many of that elder's problems are that they are so isolated. If they had more
Yeah.
friendship in their local community, they would be safer. But getting old is, I mean, everything is more dangerous when you're isolated. Being in a bad relationship, getting an
Mhm.
injury, getting an illness, like the more we all have a like big web of connection, whether that connection is sexually promiscuous or just emotionally promiscuous or politically anything, when the deeper that web is, the safer we all are when the storm comes or the illness or whatever. And I think that you see that isolation in our elders. To me, a lot of that is a inheritance of the romance model.
And I think
Yeah.
too, I actually like don't even honestly want to plug this podcaster's name because they have plenty of followers, and I'll tell you guys off mic. But there's a, let's say, productivity life optimization podcaster who's pretty cringe, who I did
Yeah.
listen to, but they had, I thought, actually a pretty useful kind of like life thing. They were talking about like planning out your week on Sundays, like obviously the stuff of like, yeah, your tasks, your meals and stuff like that. But then they were also like every Sunday, reach out to someone and like plan a walk or a lunch or a something. And I think that was like, it's really helpful because I think that it's good to keep that top of mind of like, it is something that you need to be carve out time for. And that isn't going to just come intuitively for you, maybe as you get older, in the same way it does when you're 9 years old and all you want to do is go across the street and ask if Katie can play. Like,
Mhm.
I think as we age and these other things start to like encroach on our time, it's easy to forget that like, oh, you actually do in the same way you have to be like, I'm going to go to the gym, be like, I'm going to like hang out with someone because it is like that important to your health.
And it's bananas that that is the way our culture is because people evolved through collectivity and groups. And so the fact that we've gotten so isolated that we need a reminder to have connection is scary. I mean, the pitching in the book is like, join the resistance. That is the way to have friends of all ages and people with different skills and tools who will help you with whatever you need. Like, I'm like, we all need to meet our neighbors. Like the stuff that's happening with the level of ecological crisis, like wherever you live, knowing some of your neighbors is vital. Like figuring out how to meet them, whether you like them or not. Like visit the
Yeah.
old lady on the street or talk to the kids or whatever, because like you may be relying on each other very soon. We all need lots of friends of different kinds, including, friends far away or you have wonderful calls with is great, but we all need some level of local support system and should be doing disaster prep, and doing that like on your block or in your local community if you live rurally is so vital. And like then you just end up with some relationships that may not have been like the person you'd pick out like at the club or something, but they may not have the same social norms or subcultural, interests as you. But like my experience is like I've made all of my friends in social movements for 25 years, and a lot of them are people I would never have known I would have liked. And then they become like deep, deep connections. And I learned things I wouldn't have learned because they weren't exactly from like my little corner of the queer world or whatever.
Absolutely. And like so we all live in LA, the three of us, and we just
I've
had
been
like
through it.
the fires out here. And I think that was just such a like horrible, terrifying moment, but also clarifying, I think, for people, at least for a moment, to be like, oh shit, look at the way that the whole city was just like, we step up, we take care of each other, no questions asked. Like, I don't, there was no like, well, who did this person vote for before I gave them my vest or whatever? You know what I'm, like, I mean, there was just this like, nope, people need help. Money doesn't matter. We'll just do whatever we need to do. And I think it's like, there are these moments of shock where it's like, oh, when society falls away, like that's who most of us want to be, you know. It's just
Mhm.
this cultural thing that makes us pull away from that because it isn't about money.
Yeah, we are inherently connective in all disasters. All the research shows in disasters, everyone helps each other. What's hard is that we're already
Mhm.
living in a permanent, ongoing disaster, and mostly people are alienated from that kind of direct action. When the fires come, people remember how to
Yeah.
do it, and what we need is to help each other remember how to do it. Like even when the firestorm isn't here right now, there are people
Yeah.
out living outside in our community. There are people
Yeah.
living in
Yeah.
cages, people who don't have the childcare they need on our block, people who need visits. It's all the crisis is here everywhere, but the society hides so much of it. And
Mhm.
by siloing us, by making us, kind of selectively numb so we don't notice others' pain or our own pain, by telling us we don't deserve help and support, like so many things, so and devaluing certain kinds of people, like people with disabilities and old people and kids. So like how do we tap into that connective, caring, generous spirit in ourselves and trust it in others all the time, or as much of the time as possible. Like and that to me, there's some emotional healing work. That's why this is a self-help book. I'm like, there is a lot to heal about what we were told about ourselves and others and how we got by and bad things that happen inevitably, like in order to get ourselves to open that channel again and try it out. And I mean, to me, I'm just like, I just tell people, just join groups, just whoever's doing
Yeah.
mutual aid in your community,
Mhm.
join it, join a study group, read radical books with people, join a group that we're all going to like keep each other safe and go to protests together and like know each other's immigration statuses or whatever meds we need or whatever, and like come and go together so we feel that connection. Like just be part of some groups, and you don't have to like love endlessly the people you're joining the group with. Like just start anywhere and see who you meet. Next layer, who you meet. What, oh, there's that going on. That sounds even more like what I care about most. But like starting by joining anything is so helpful.
And I think sometimes people get afraid that they're like, oh, if I'm gonna go to a mutual aid event, I'm gonna join some sort of a group. That means I'm gonna be like chaining myself to a building, calling people pigs. And it's like, no. That's if you want to do that, you can do that. There's
There's
room
so
for
many
you.
inroads. Yeah,
Yeah, there's
and
room
I
for
think
you
for a
in
lot of
any
people,
way.
care is the best starting place in
Yeah.
social movements, and that's what we need the most of. We do
Yeah.
need people to like make food, hold the babies, change the diapers, visit the elders, like that. There's our society abandons almost everyone, and almost all the social problems we have are because there's just not that care and support. And so that, I mean, that's that kind of work is just like anyone can start anytime, or just like organize people on your block to be like, oh, are we storing water if there's going to be an earthquake, or do people, just like basic, does everyone know how to turn off their utilities in case of this kind of, disaster? Like just like basic stuff can start those connections.
Yeah, I feel like, and it's everywhere too. Like in my like buy nothing group or whatever, somebody posted that they're helping their elderly neighbor move out because they're getting evicted. Of course, the stuff behind it's awful, but they were like, they've been here forever, they need help. And a few of us are like going over there now Sunday to just help them move their stuff. And it's not, this it was so easy to find. I feel like these things are around if you look for them. It's not like, I think people can get maybe overwhelmed by joining big groups, but there's so many small things you can be doing or looking out for too that are available to you.
A lot of people I know having go bag parties with their friends, or like if they're in
Mm.
some kind of community, like a music community or just any kind of subcultural community in your town or whatever you're into, people who knit or whatever, like having a little flyer, or you can just be with your friends. And then you just like, I recommend Margaret Killjoy's podcast as a place to find out about go bags. I love Live Like the World is Dying. It's a great podcast.
Nice.
She makes you feel very pragmatic about how to kind of like get this stuff done.
Okay,
And then you're just like,
I
oh, we're
need
all going to
that.
bring extra
Yeah,
bags, or I'm
same.
going to bring extra flashlights or whatever we all have. Or you could
Yeah.
do it like for your block and be like, there's going to be a giveaway, or bring anything like on this list that you have. You can decide, you can practice it small, but like that kind of thing, that's like most people know they should have a go bag, but then they're like, haven't done it and it feels overwhelming. But if you do it with others, suddenly it's chill and it's fun. Oh, someone's going to make cupcakes.
Yeah.
My problem is I overpacked for my go bag.
Yeah.
I
Take
have
it
too
from us,
much.
people who fled the fires. You don't want to be packing that shit in the moment, or you will
No.
end up.
No, you'll bring a
Yeah.
bathing suit and you're
You're
like,
like,
what
why
did
this and
I?
not that? Yeah.
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 Okay.
Should we do a lady problem?
Yeah, let's do a lady problem when we
Yeah.
wrap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Drunk
Yeah,
dial us. We
exactly.
love getting drunk dials.
Yeah.
Ladies, I'm just wondering, are we still using the term best friend? I've moved a lot in my adulthood, and so I've been lucky to make friends everywhere I've lived, but none of them have been like best friend level. So I still kind of think of a few high school and college friends as my quote unquote best friends. But in the past 3 years, I've become very close with a new friend where I live currently, and I think we are at best friend level, but I just don't know how to tell her that, or if that
so
term
cute.
is still a term the kids are using, or if it just puts like too much pressure on friendships these days. Just for context, we're both in our mid-30s, we're both married, and we both have many other friends in our lives, but many of our close friends live in other states, so we don't see them nearly as often as we see each other. So any advice you have, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
I
Aw.
love this
This is
question.
so cute.
I
Yeah.
know.
Congratulations on having friends all over and a best friend. Yeah.
I know.
My
So cute.
Yeah.
My take on this is actually related to the thing we were talking about earlier with exclusivity, which is I think it's wonderful to I have multiple people who I call my best friend, to be honest, but
Yeah.
I'm slutty that way. But part of it is like I think just like how can we both really celebrate friendship, like get matching tattoos, have a friend anniversary party, like do like really like dive into our friendships, and also not inherit any of the romance myth stuff about exclusivity. Like now I'm mad because you went on a trip with her and usually you just go with me, or like, you know what I mean? How
Yeah.
can we manage? Like, it's what I want is I want us to take the best things we do in friendship, which is like caring about each other's well-being, like, wanting the best for people, kind of that lighter hold that's not like trying to control the other person. But I also want the best from lovership, like devotion, loyalty, And I want us to let go of jealousy, exclusivity, not the feelings of those things, but like cultivating those or thinking that those mean we should control others. So I think
Mhm.
that's the thing. It's just like, can we declare best friendship without setting up something where we now think we should control or like not want the person to have other friends, like that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that would be the only potential, if you want to consider like a downside of calling someone your best friend, it would be if you had any kind of an expectation that that you are that person's only close friend, or that you have any kind of stake over them. But I totally agree. I think a best friend is like a category. It's like for
Mhm.
sure it's bestie, it's like your bestie. Like I have so many. Also very slutty with best friends because I'm very blessed in that way. Like I just like I have a lot
Mhm.
of people that are I do consider my best friends, and I think that totally you have best friends as an adult, definitely.
Oh yeah, 100%. I
Yeah.
guess I haven't made like a new. It's like all the people who are my best friends I've known for a long time. So I haven't made like a new person who I would be like, you are my best friend too. So I think that's like cute. I mean, I'm assuming that if this person is as close, they're gonna love it if you say that. I think you go old school route and like buy the half heart,
Yes.
the half heart
Yeah.
necklace.
Big fan of that. Yes.
Okay, I do have a question because me and my boyfriend, we have a joke argument about this because I don't like it when couples are like they're my best friend or like I don't I
Right.
and I'm like no, you're not my best friend, you're my partner. Like
Yeah.
I don't think of you as my best friend. Like my best friends are who I talk shit about you to. Like I don't know. I just don't. We always make fun of it, just as a joke, kind of, because he's like, "But you are my best friend." I'm like, "I know that, I guess, but I don't think of you like that."
Yeah. I mean, I think
Yeah.
also maybe it's like there's a part of I wonder if there's a part of you that's responding to the gross thing where it's like everything's supposed to be with this one person. And we
Mhm.
actually want to have lots of kinds of connection with lots of people. And so yeah, like or like also some people like I've known a lot of people who are in a couple where they felt like there was a rule that they couldn't talk about the relationship and what was hard about it with other people, which is
Oh
a very
wow.
dangerous rule. I've seen people get into that where
Yeah.
it's like, where they only
Yeah.
hang out with other people who are couples. They're like basically not allowed to have their own
Like
friendships.
Right.
Like this is
Single
the kind of like
friend.
Mhm.
really
That's
icky,
toxic.
hard stuff that sometimes
Yeah.
people aren't explicitly saying you can't, but there's a vibe. And then the other person's going with the vibe. And now we're like 10 years in or something, and it's really lonely in here and things are hard and I
Mhm.
have no one to talk to. And sometimes people are like, I don't want you to go to therapy. There can just be like a level of control. So I think that fantasy that one person should be everything to you is worth resisting. And also, I bet there are couples where best friend feels really good. And
Mhm.
maybe
yeah, of
like I've
course.
also felt like before with people I've dated where I'm like, I want to be a good friend to you in addition to being your lover. Like I actually want to care about what is good for you. So in that
Yeah.
sense, invoking friendship like reminds us all like for me in being in open relationships, like I care about what's happening for you with your other lovers. If you're stressed out, I want to hear about it and be supportive for you. Um, if that's important, because I want to be a good friend to you in addition to being your lover. You know what I mean? Like figuring
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
out how to invoke friendship, but not have the assumption that like because we're lovers, you must be my best friend.
Well, it's interesting too, because I feel like in heterosexual relationships, often too, it can be like, the woman in the relationship is like has all these friends with like, amazing connections and everything. And like the guys, I think, have like less people that they have like that level of intimacy and conversation with as well, you know.
That's so
Straight. I
unfair.
have a new
True.
stand-up joke where I'm like, straight men have 4 friends.
Yeah.
That's my.
Yes, like
I
of
want them
course
to
you're my
have
best
more.
friend. I only know like three other, and Brian can't be all of them. Like, yeah, I know. Well, and I think it's also like, to me, best friend, how I use it is also like you're like my bro, like, and so I think actually like it kind of varies day by day. Like sometimes your significant other is like your bro, and sometimes they're not. So I think it's a more fluid. Sometimes they're your best friend, and sometimes they're not. Like sometimes you're playing video games with them, and sometimes you're like, do the fucking dishes.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's a more emotional roller coaster relationship for most people. There's a lot of activation. There's a lot of emotional activation in that relationship that isn't quite the same in other connections. Although, of course, there can be emotional activation anywhere, but a lot of people get in terrible friendship dramas or fights at work. But like the yeah, there's a kind of what you're describing, Tess, of a kind of maybe like it doesn't stay on the level of bro because maybe you're like feeling this other kind of domestic tension or whatever. It makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
It is so sad how, in general, men in our culture are discouraged from having intimacy, like sharing feelings.
Yes.
Like
It's
and of course, there are many men who know how to do this well, but overall, that is like that. I think that's not only lost, but I think it's a cause of a lot of violence in our society and a lot of like the
Oh,
harm that men do.
absolutely.
It's
100.
really intense, and like figuring out how to care for and support men and boys to be able to make those connections and in loving connections in friendships is just so vital.
Well,
Yeah.
and
I
when you
mean,
think about how many like stereotypically feminine, I guess if you want to call them like type hangouts or activities are centered around care or like enjoying the finer things in life, as like, yeah, you're gonna go on a hike or to a museum or have a nice brunch. They're all things that are sort of like maybe not productive. Maybe they aren't like the grind. Maybe it's not, you are going to take 3 hours to have a meal or go do something that is a little bit of a luxury. And I think those are things that straight men are also sort of cultured to sort of feel shame around.
right. Yeah. It's like, I gotta grind. I gotta
Yeah.
grind.
Or like watch a million sports or spend a
Yeah.
lot of money on a motorcycle or something. I mean, I definitely feel like it's like, but yeah, but there's a kind of way that they're not supposed to share their feelings. And also they have a lot, I mean, there's a lot of studies about how they have like less touch in their lives. And their only touch is often if they can seek sexual touch with women. And
Yeah.
so I think that touch deprivation is a really kind of like cultural torture of men and boys. And it's much worse in the United States than in many other places in the world where men do touch more and have more affectionate friendships and more affection with their parents. But people stop touching boys like very young in the United States culture, from what I've read. And like, so all of that is like going to make people who are hardened or who are insensitive or who are reactive in particular ways or who are taught to like take touch, I'm just like I'm quite worried about that balance.
100%. I mean, obviously, we all know what, yeah, shit's not great right now. And it makes me, one of the things that makes me the most sad is this, red pill kind of like culture that's been getting more and more prominent, and it is so much. I'm like, think just like, oh God, I wish you just had somebody you could like hug and like really be emotional with because it
I
would just help so
know.
much. And instead, it's all this anger and, sadness.
Yeah, these men like who are so openly sexist and like feel so deprived of sexuality and think that they should be able to take it and stuff. They just seem like babies to me. You know what I mean? Like tantruming babies with fucking guns. It's
That's what it is. I
terrifying. You know
mean,
what I mean?
one of the things that I most remember from like my Meisner acting training is, when you would do this scene work, the straight, because I don't know, Meisner basically essentially you kind of reduce a scene down to just the emotions, I guess is the best way I can describe it. And the straight men in the class would always go in their improvisations straight to punching shit, yelling, getting mad. Like that was always, and our teacher would be like, you guys are doing that because anger is the easiest emotion to access. And you don't have like they're babies. They're only hitting that first most easy. There's nothing, it takes no work really to get to anger. Or we can get there without any kind of training or like thoughtfulness. And like that is so many people never even move past that one. And that's just sort of like the only one. So when they feel an emotion, it's just anger.
And so many people socialize as women can't feel any anger. I think that's the other side of it.
Yes,
Right,
that's
Like only shame, only guilt. It's my fault. I think of this as like some people are trained to be externalizers. I feel bad, something's wrong with you. Some people internalize, I feel bad, something's wrong with me.
yes.
That's why more women read more self-help books, go to therapy more, and there can be, these things can cross gender lines for sure.
Of
But there's kind of
course.
these archetypes, yeah.
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 Well, we have to let you go. So let everybody know where they can find you online, where they can find your book and everything else.
Yeah, I have almost everything at my website, deanspade.net. And then also I use so all the social medias, or I mean, not all of them, some of them. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you so much for having me. I love talking to you all. It's so fun.
Yeah, this is a great
Well
talk.
done, Dean.
Thanks for reading.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
We'll see you next
Bye.
time, everybody.
Bye.